Article 400.7 of the National Electrical Code, or NEC, addresses the identification of conductors within a flexible cord. Specifically, it mandates the conductors within a flexible cord must have an outer surface that is readily identifiable as a hot conductor. This requirement is in place to enhance safety and prevent accidental misconnections during electrical work. The purpose of identifying the hot conductor in the flexible cord is to ensure that electricians and other personnel can easily distinguish it from the neutral or grounding conductors. This is crucial for maintaining proper polarity in electrical circuits, which helps prevent electrical shocks, short circuits, and other potential hazards. When working with flexible cords, it is essential to be able to quickly and accurately identify the hot conductor to ensure safe and reliable connections. The NEC does not prescribe a specific method for identifying the hot conductor, but it does state that the outer surface of the conductor must be readily identifiable. This means that the marking or identification method should be clear, durable, and easily recognizable under typical working conditions. Several common methods are used to identify the hot conductor in a flexible cord. Firstly, ribbing or other surface markings may be present on the white wire. This involves creating a raised or textured pattern on the surface of the white wire to differentiate it from the other conductors. The ribbing provides a tactile means of identification, allowing electricians to distinguish the hot conductor even in low light or when color identification is difficult. Secondly, a color tracer or stripe may be applied to the white wire. This involves adding a thin line or band of color along the length of the white wire to indicate that it is the hot conductor. The colored tracer should be a contrasting color that is easily visible against the white background of the wire. Thirdly, printing or stamping may be applied directly onto the white wire. This involves using a specialized printer or stamping machine to apply markings such as letters, numbers, or symbols onto the surface of the wire. The printing or stamping should be clear, legible, and durable enough to withstand normal handling and environmental conditions. It's important to note that the specific method used to identify the hot conductor may vary depending on the manufacturer and the type of flexible cord. Therefore, it is always best to carefully inspect the cord and look for any markings or indicators that identify the hot conductor before making any connections. There is, however, an exception to the rule requiring identification of the hot conductor in a flexible cord. This exception applies when the flex cord is used in a fixed wiring application. In a fixed wiring application, the flexible cord is installed in a permanent location and is not intended to be moved or handled frequently. Because fixed wiring is less likely to be disturbed or modified than flexible cord that is regularly moved or handled, the risk of misidentifying the hot conductor is reduced. In these cases, the NEC allows the white wire to be used as a hot conductor without requiring it to be specifically identified. This exception is based on the understanding that qualified electricians are typically involved in the installation of fixed wiring systems and are trained to properly identify and connect the conductors. However, it is important to note that even in fixed wiring applications, it is still good practice to identify the hot conductor whenever possible. This can help prevent confusion and ensure that future modifications or repairs are performed safely and correctly. In summary, Article 400.7 of the NEC requires that conductors in the flexible cord have an outer surface that is readily identifiable as a hot conductor. This requirement is in place to enhance safety and prevent accidental misconnections during electrical work. Common methods for identifying the hot conductor include ribbing or other surface markings, a colored tracer or stripe, and printing or stamping on the white wire. An exception to this rule exists for flexible cords used in fixed wiring applications, where the white wire does not need to be specifically identified as a hot conductor. When working with flexible cords, it is always best to carefully inspect the cord and look for any markings or indicators that identify a hot conductor before making any connections. This will help ensure safe and reliable electrical connections. The NEC is updated regularly, so it's crucial to consult the latest edition for the most accurate and up-to-date information. Always consult with a qualified electrician for any electrical work to ensure safety and compliance with local codes and regulations. When working with electrical systems and components, it is essential to prioritize safety at all times. This includes wearing appropriate personal protective equipment such as safety glasses and gloves, and following all applicable safety procedures. Before working on any electrical circuit, always turn off the power at the breaker panel to prevent electrical shocks. Double-check that the power is off by using a voltage tester to verify that no voltage is present. When making electrical connections, ensure that all wires are properly sized and insulated. Use appropriate connectors and terminals to create secure and reliable connections. Never overload electrical circuits or extension cords, as this can create a fire hazard. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, always hire a qualified electrician to perform the work. Remember, electricity can be dangerous, and it is always better to be safe than sorry. By following these safety precautions and guidelines, you can help prevent electrical accidents and ensure that electrical work is performed safely and correctly. In addition to the NEC requirements for identifying hot conductors and flexible cords, there are other relevant code sections that may apply depending on the specific application. For example, Article 400.9 of the NEC covers the use of flexible cords in pendant and fixture wiring. This section specifies the types of flexible cords that are permitted for use in these applications and sets forth requirements for their installation and support. Article 400.10 of the NEC addresses the use of flexible cords in show windows and showcases. This section limits the types of flexible cords that can be used in these locations and requires that they be protected from physical damage. Article 400.11 of the NEC covers the use of flexible cords in appliances. This section specifies the types of flexible cords that are permitted for use with different types of appliances and sets forth requirements for their installation and connection. When working with flexible cords in any of these applications, it is important to consult the relevant code sections to ensure that the installation complies with all applicable requirements. In addition to the NEC, other standards and regulations may also apply to the use of flexible cords. For example, Underwriters Laboratories, or ALL, is a widely recognized organization that develops safety standards for electrical products. UL standards for flexible cords cover a variety of topics, including the construction, performance, and marking of the cords. Compliance with UL standards is often required by local codes and regulations, and it can provide an added level of assurance that the flexible cord is safe and reliable. The National Electrical Manufacturers Association, or NEMA, is another organization that develops standards for electrical products. NEMA standards for flexible cords cover topics such as the dimensions, materials, and electrical characteristics of the cords. Compliance with NEMA standards can help ensure that flexible cords are compatible with other electrical components and systems. When selecting flexible cords for a particular application, it is important to consider all applicable standards and regulations to ensure that the cords meet the necessary safety and performance requirements. In addition to the technical requirements for flexible cords, there are also some practical considerations that should be taken into account when selecting and installing these cords. For example, the length of the flexible cord should be appropriate for the application. Excessively long cords can create a tripping hazard and can also cause voltage drop, which can reduce the performance of electrical equipment. The type of insulation on a flexible cord should be suitable for the environment in which it will be used. For example, flexible cords that will be exposed to moisture or chemicals should have insulation that is resistant to these substances. The gauge of the flexible cord should be appropriate for the amount of current that it will carry. Undersized cords can overheat and create a fire hazard. When installing flexible cords, it is important to avoid sharp bends or kinks, as these can damage the insulation and reduce the cord's lifespan. Flexible cords should also be supported properly to prevent them from sagging or rubbing against sharp edges. By taking these practical considerations into account, you can help ensure the flexible cords are selected and installed in a safe and reliable manner. In conclusion, Article 400.7 of the NEC requires that conductors in a flexible cord have an outer surface that is readily identifiable as a hot conductor. This requirement is in place to enhance safety and prevent accidental misconnections during electrical work. Common methods for identifying the hot conductor include ribbing or other surface markings, a colored tracer or stripe, and printing or stamping on a white wire. An exception to this rule exists for flexible cords used in fixed wiring applications, where the white wire does not need to be specifically identified as a hot conductor. When working with flexible cords, it is always best to carefully inspect the cord and look for any markings or indicators that identify the hot conductor before making any connections. This will help ensure safe and reliable electrical connections. Other relevant code sections, standards, and regulations may also apply to the use of flexible cords depending on the specific application. When selecting and installing flexible cords, it is important to consider all applicable requirements and to follow all applicable safety procedures. By doing so, you can help prevent electrical accidents and ensure that electrical work is performed safely and correctly. Remember to always consult the latest edition of the NEC and other relevant standards and regulations for the most accurate and up-to-date information. And always consult with a qualified electrician for any electrical work to ensure safety and compliance with local codes and regulations.